Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is The Conservative Five, an online TV news production of Liberty Nation News. The misery that accompanied Hurricane Helene's path of destruction has spotlighted the ineptitude of the agency created to assist the victims, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. Its sole purpose is to respond to U.S. disasters. Somehow, again, that didn't happen, and the government was about a week late and a whole lot short on resources. Thank goodness for regular Americans that showed up and cleared a path to reach folks in need. FEMA has had its own set of issues going back to the 80s. One of the ones I remember most was under the Bush administration when Katrina hit, and the FEMA director was at dinner and didn't want to be interrupted. So I hope that's not the case here. But Dave, is it time to admit FEMA's usefulness has come and gone?
Wow, Sarah. Yeah, I believe it has. You know, it seems every time there's a broad area disaster, whether it's a hurricane, multiple tornadoes, floods, you name it, FEMA, the agency Americans depend on, always comes up short. I don't believe it's just the nature of government agencies to become bureaucratically slothful. FEMA has as its core value that it guarantees a substandard performance. The almost maniacal adherence to diversity, equity, and inclusion guarantees the agency will be run by less experienced, poorly trained, less competent, and less dedicated people. Since the emphasis for hiring and retaining its staff has nothing to do with those qualities. We learned that FEMA, while attempting to support Hurricane Helene victims, was trying to aid victims of other floods, landslides, tornadoes, and forest fires. And reports are that FEMA was trying to support 100 major disasters at the time. All of this while failing to maintain adequate staffing. The Government Accountability Office reported recently that 35% of FEMA's positions are vacant. In reporting on FEMA's management of its people, the New York Times, not a conservative rag, revealed that the Monday before Hurricane Milton hit Florida, of the 2,500 people in FEMA's Individual Assistance Division, only 4 could be deployed. Count them. 4. That is a failure of leadership and management.
That's amazing. It's a horrible number. What?
Well, one of the critical problems is, that the military cannot be deployed until the state or local governments are overwhelmed and ask for Defense Department help. This is a national security concern, if ever there was one. Can you imagine depending on FEMA if, God forbid, the U.S. was under a nuclear attack? Well, fortunately, Sarah, the Unified Military Combatant Command, U.S. Northern Command, is available to direct disaster relief in those instances. But FEMA is supposed to be supporting that combatant command. The entire disaster response system and processes needs to be reviewed and fixed.
Graham, do you ever remember when FEMA has done a great job post-disaster? I can't remember any of them. And maybe I'm just looking at it from a different angle right now, but I don't remember a time when they ever performed very well.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted me to say more than that?
Well, I kind of want you to elaborate a little bit.
Well, put it this way. In the 24 years that I've been in this country, I cannot recall a time when there was any kind of major natural disaster and FEMA's response to it was, to use your words, a bang-up job. Sometimes they've done kind of better than other times. They've been quick off the mark at times and got resources in place. So I'm not going to say that FEMA itself has always been a disaster on the scale of needing its own assistance. But have they ever done a bang-up job? I don't think. I think anyone would be hard pushed to say that they had, at least in my living memory in this country, the last 2.5 decades.
Well, let's follow the money, Andrew. They claim there's just not enough money to go around for all the climate change disasters going on. Do you believe that?
Okay, so I want to get a few cents in here because I know John's going to provide some excellent insight into this topic. So first, I'll say to add on to Dave's point, that's a great opportunity to bring all the troops home from Europe, from Africa, from South Korea, and help them with the post-disaster recovery. Another point too is that there was a survey conducted shortly after Hurricane Katrina and found that just 25% of the people impacted in Mississippi said the government was their most important source of aid. Just 25%. And on the economics front too, everyone can blame FEMA, but I think the other important point is that the federal and state subsidized flood and wind insurance has exacerbated the situation by incentivizing the overbuilding in the coastal zones that worsen the economic impacts of these hurricane storms on their natural disaster. Now, when it comes to the money trail of the situation, I find it remarkable. So, as everyone knows, Trump, he made a point a few weeks ago saying that, all the money from FEMA is going to go to the illegal immigrants. Now, the media and the White House said, that's cuckoo talk. What the heck are you saying? Most of what he said was incorrect, but there is a kernel of truth, as in a lot of what Trump says. So, in 2022, White House Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, she admitted that the, quote, the FEMA administrators were using federal support and funding from the Emergency Food and Shelter Program to support humanitarian relief for migrants. Now, I looked a bit into this just to see if the mainstream media was fact-checking correctly. They were not fact-checking correctly because the whole EFSP, or the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, it was in 2019, the funds under Trump administration, ironically, went to illegal immigrants who crossed into the country illegally and were described as family units. Now, Trump tried to dismantle this program before he left office, but it did not happen. And instead, the Biden-era American Rescue Plan added more funding to this program. So, FEMA, for the last few years, has actually already been giving hundreds of millions of dollars in disaster assistance for illegal immigrants, even prior to Hurricanes Helene and Milton. So I think all of this, to put into context, shows that the government does not get its priorities correct. FEMA is a disaster. The government does not handle these disasters correctly, and America's foreign policy would be better served, and this adventurism and the resources applied to it would be better served back at home to help in these recovery efforts. So I hope I put this into a neat little box, and now John can build upon it and provide his excellent take on it.
It was a nice little wrapped up package, Andrew. I mean, even I can understand your economics right now. Okay, Clar, who stepped up? I mean, let's face it, the Cajun Navy and a bunch of hillbillies did more with their backhoe capabilities and their pack mules than I think even FEMA could imagine.
Well, they did, and that raises the question of how we'll still vote, and the states are stepping up, and local people are stepping up, and when they're not stepped on by FEMA, what a panel discussion to follow, but I'll take the gauntlet from Andrew. I think I can add to that. He's trying to steal all the good stuff. Graham, we don't know that they haven't done a bang-up job sometime accidentally, so it is possible. And Dave, you're...
I'll concede.
Accidental success.
We're not omniscient. They may.
There is a possibility. There is also a possibility that Bigfoot is, swimming with the Loch Ness Monster.
And Dave the Hammer, I've rarely seen you hammer anything as you did that agency, so I was amused. But you're talking about DEI. It was a disaster long before it became woke. It was asleep. It actually was created in 1950 under the Truman administration. You remember, Dave. And they, as an underground bunker system for...
What an insult to Dave.
Hey, Florida's on a roll.
Hey.
All this is
I think
games, and he goes crazy.
And I dish it out, and I'm being playful, obviously. I'm very respectful of Dave's career. But, it is morphed into this massive, I'm agreeing with Dave, a massive bureaucratic ineptitude. And maybe it would be better to go back into that bunker system and hide to help us. Some people may have seen the Glenn Beck interview where he went up to some FEMA people and there was no one there. And they said, hey, we're here to help as soon as their computers go on. And this morning, I heard on public radio, which I listened to solely to prepare myself for this interview, I have and they were talking, FEMA has issued a statement that it will not allow the politicization of its efforts to undermine its objectives. But it has been politicized. And the fact is, as Andrew points out, the agency did run out of money, and it has diverted funds to migrant causes. And in fact, it's now pulled $20 billion from its 2025 budget, or it would be broke now. So we're just borrowing more money. But I'll show you an example of the politicization by Forbes, of all places. They put out an article titled, Trump FEMA Claim Debunked, Agency Not Running Out of Money Because of Migrants. Well, the day before, ABC ran something from New York as showing they had run out of money. They'd come out of more money. So in the Forbes article, this is what they say, though. If you read the body of the article, they say that over $1 billion was spent on immigrants, but Forbes says that's been through the agency's shelter and services program, a totally different funding port than the disaster relief fund used to respond to hurricanes and other natural disasters. So they're literally, you could literally have written this article saying Trump was correct. They ran out of money and they diverted money to migrants. But, oh, wait, it was a little subject. This itself is bureaucratic. So I think the political football is being played. But what I would say is I've never seen an administration under, it didn't matter blue or red. FEMA has a long history of exactly this sort of ineptitude. So, it's almost like the political football is being used like so many things that now you can't criticize it because it's, it's under this administration. But these problems have persisted for a long time, and they'll continue to persist unless we have a bipartisan response. And in the meantime, I think bipartisan citizens are running around on the ground. And I don't think people care about that when they're trying to help people.
Hey, Sarah, one thing, and I'm going to kind of fortify both John's and Andrew's comments by putting in some inside baseball comments, and it's the Boston Red Sox inside baseball, Andrew. So here's the point.
Shots fired.
Yeah. Here's the point. The people who talk about the budgetary issues forget the fact that DHS, Homeland Defense Department, is the parent agency. And that's the agency that deals with the illegal aliens as well as FEMA. They have the capacity to reprogram money from one area to another. It's a very simple process. They also have $73 billion in money that they have not spent. And they haven't spent it because they're incompetent. They don't pay their bills. Those bills basically run out of time, but the money stays there. It's obligated, but it's not spent. They can do a lot of things to recover that money, but they don't because their management and leadership is, as we have said, incompetent.
And I think we should all give a shout out, to the American spirit for people to show up from states all over this country, including Alaska, to help out in North Carolina and Florida. A lot of veterans organizations, they were there. As soon as they saw that hurricane hit, they're like, let's pack it up and get gone. And they did. And they were on the ground. People came from everywhere. They mule packs, for goodness sake. And I think we should all give a shout out to the American spirit because that doesn't happen in our government ever. Anyway, I'm just pontificating at this point. So, Helene's devastation and the federal government's faltering response cast a spotlight on FEMA's anemic and misguided management. And as we heard on panel today, and especially from Dave, if this is practice for national security situation, we, my friends, could be in a world of hurt. Thanks for watching. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel, where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.